So thank you very much and namaskar.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
So that was a very wonderful talk by Dr. Mahesh Kotbagi. He's going to be our RI director, and we are really thankful that he logged in between two sessions in New Delhi. Can I just check if Mr. Rajendra Shende ji has logged in?
Yes, sir, he has joined.
Okay, Rajendra, welcome to this session. I'm pleased to inform you that almost, I think, 400 and odd people from about 22 countries are attending this session. They're all waiting to hear from you. But before I request you to speak, I would need to do some formality of introducing you. So here I go. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to present to you Mr. Rajendra Shende. He is chairman of TER Policy Center, which means the Earth's Policy Center. He has a very impressive biodata. He's an IIT alumnus, former director in the United Nations Environment Program in Paris. Currently chairman of TER, as I said, and he's the Government of India's nominated senior expert to the UNEP. An important achievement of Mr. Shende is that he was the coordinating lead author of IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And for that work, his group was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007 with Al Gore. So we are really very privileged, Rajendra, that you have taken time off. I know you are extremely busy. Internationally, people keep consulting you. Even today, whole day you were busy till almost 7 o'clock, and still you have dropped in with us. Thanks a lot. He has also received awards from USC on climate and ozone layer protection and was felicitated by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam ji. Currently, he's advisor to Media India France. And a very interesting initiative which he has taken is to network of universities and schools for what is called as a Smart Campus Cloud Network, which is aimed at climate neutrality and strategic development goals. Since yesterday, Rajendra, I have been listening to the wonderful speakers of this Global Peace Convention, and I can tell you that there are a lot of questions that have come to my mind. A lot of questions have got answered, some questions have got created, and some of the questions which have got created in my mind is peace something concrete to achieve at all, or is it elusive? Another question which I'm having is, how close or far is human civilization from peace? Then what are ways to find the paths for peace? And last but not the least, how does one walk the talk in peace? I thought that a person of your eminent qualifications may answer some of these tricky questions which are in my mind. So over to you, Rajendra, to talk about indivisible link between peace and sustainable development. If you have a PPT, you may please feel free to share it.
Okay, thank you, Pradeep. Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Extremely pleased to be here with many dignitaries who spoke so well on an issue related to peace, and also working in a very persuasive way in a Rotary activities. I think all these people working are extremely passionate about what they want to achieve, whether it is related to polio eradication or in a field of education and working with the poor. I've seen a great passion, and I've been working with Pradeep also on a number of these events, mainly talking and not walking with them. So I believe that soon I will have a chance to walk with them to perform something. But I liked your question, Pradeep, that we have been talking a lot about the peace. We have been showing nice, peaceful pictures. We probably are defining peace in the dictionaries. It could be a calm mind, it could be serenity, it could be accord, it could be harmony, so many things. But after all, it has remained elusive for a number of reasons. But let me start. And how much time, Pradeep, I have for talking? Because I don't have PowerPoint. So I have to be very quick so that I think your attention is not diverted. Pradeep, how much
15 to 20 minutes, go ahead, and then some quick Q&A.
Okay. I'm going to start with mainly some of the events, particularly 3 events that took place in the later half of the 20th century and early 21st century. And I will make it sort of a question back to you, whether this link between peace and sustainable development is really a link that that need to be further strengthened, or this is a fictitious link. So let me start with the first event, and that first event is the existence of United Nations, and it came immediately after the World War II. So obviously its objective was peace and the human security. It became like a global parliament. United Nations didn't have their own what is called as a authority to act, but it took the authority from their member states. There are about 193 member states now. So many times we say, when I spent about 20 years in United Nations and watched it within, not remaining outside, and I was party to a number of decisions that took place. But United Nations always says that we are what the states are. We don't make any independent decisions. We make decisions based on what are the consultations that are taking place between the states. So 75 years back in October 1945 in San Francisco, this global platform came into being. And today, after 75 years, and we have a 75th Global Assembly of United Nations, just in September 2020, when COVID-19 was going on, we probably look back, the whole world looked back to see where exactly United Nations is. Did it achieve its objective of peace and security? And one of the important conclusions was, it has a mixed success. Now, mixed success is a good word, because I must say that there have been some successes, but we must admit that there were quite failures as well. But the process started getting matured and the wisdom started coming. Many said that one of the greatest achievements of United Nations is we didn't have a World War III over the last 75 years. Well, according to me, the World War III has started. It started from the Industrial Revolution. And that war is an invisible war. It is slowly coming on us. And it is something which we are fighting with, or which we are trying to devastate that, whoever is we are fighting with, is something extremely unfortunate. I call it a World War III against the nature. We always considered, right from 1945, that peace is for the human beings. And we always defined the security as a human security. Now look, as we went along, there was another event called as Earth Summit, 1992, about 47 years after the 1945. It was held in Rio, and many of you know about it. And that was called as a summit which came out with a document called Earth Agenda 21. People started looking at 21st century, that how we are going to live. And that is the time when we realized that human beings are only one of the species, one of the 8 million species on the earth. Remember, when I say 8 million species, they are known species. There are many unknown species. And many scientists today say those are related to the biodiversity. Now, there is a convention on biodiversity, which also was born in Rio in Earth Summit. It says that we are able to identify only 20% of species, and those are the 8 million. And human being is only one. So why we talk about human related peace and human security, which was of course a wrong concept. We are so selfish that for our own security, we are ready to destroy the nature. And this realization came much later on. When we talk about a peace, when we talk about meditation, and when we talk about a calmness, we always say it is for the human being. But we forget that there are so many animals, birds, and the biological species and microorganisms with which we live. I mean, your body, you must have said, have trillions of species with you. And we walk with them, we speak with them, we show the PowerPoint presentation with them. And they are there with us, but we say that no, we human beings are giving a PowerPoint presentation. But it's a microorganisms within our body. They are playing and networking together to make sure that we make a right point. Sometimes we do make a wrong points. But then that's because probably we get diverted to somewhere when we forget that we are carrying those species with us. So the Agenda 21 in Rio talked about what is called as sustainable development, which means the development which takes care of the going along with the nature. So we are not going to devastate the nature and do our development. And we all know the examples, how we are carrying out our development by destroying the nature. And I'm not going to discuss that. But let me tell you something. The time came in year 2000, exactly on this day, 31st December, something revolutionary happened in United Nations. And it is called as taking the corporations and business into the United Nations activity to achieve peace and security. When I say corporations, they are business corporations related to manufacturing, related to the service. And this was United Nations former Secretary General, Kofi Annan, who came up with the idea that it is not only 193 member states that are responsible for making the peace. The business leaders should also come in and follow the principles and charter of United Nations. That was a revolutionary moment that mainstreamed the peace in the whole process of sustainable development. And then came in 2015, what is called as a Sustainable Development Goals. And those are 17 goals which take us to all sectors and all facets of our daily life, whether it is related to energy, well-being, health, education, whether it is related to working with collective partnerships, and whether it is related to sky, land, water. Those 17 goals, they have to be mainstreamed now in our life in order to make sure that we get ultimate peace. You may still think, what is then peace? Is this a long lecture about sustainable development? Let me give you an example. I don't know how many of you know this person called Muhammad Bouazizi. He is the person which was responsible for starting what is called as Arab Spring and the movement called ISIS. And that movement, many believe, and a lot of things have been written on that, started because we were not following sustainable development. Today, one of the major conflicts in the world exist. They exist because what Muhammad Bouazizi did. He was a simple Tunisian fruit vendor. And in December 2010, he set himself on fire in a marketplace in a town called Sidi Bouzid. Why? Because the police took his cart on which he was selling his fruits. And police said, we will give you the cart provided you pay the money. It's a corruption. He didn't have the money, frankly. So the fruits had gone and he set himself on fire. The research was done on why he burnt himself and what happened later on. The Arab Spring started, the Syrian war started, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt, Kuwait, Morocco, all started boiling. The political issues started coming up. Iraq came, Libya came, Yemen came, and it started reaching to the doorsteps of many countries, including India. Why it happened? Because that fruit vendor didn't have money. He couldn't afford it. The price was so high. The prices of fruits were so high. They were not getting sold. And that is because of series of droughts that took place in Tunisia and around. And Syrian conflict is also mainly because of the droughts that had taken place. There are about 20 years of continuous droughts that put all these Arab countries into a problem. We are not talking about sheikhs and the kings. We're talking about a common man in those countries. And that drought was a result of the climate change. And the climate change was a result of our unsustainable consumptions and the human actions which started using the fossil fuels in such a big way. That's the relation. The relation, and that's why the sustainable goal number 13 talks about clean energy. And that number 7 talks about action on climate change. Because if you take the action on those kind of nature aggressions that human beings are doing, if you don't take care of them, the peace gets disturbed. And I think that is one of the examples which have been talked about all the time. Well, the war on nature, how we stop it? We have to mainstream into the sustainable development goals in our everyday life. It's not difficult, easy. The goal started from 1st January 2016 and they will end by 2030, the December 2030. So we have about 10 years. We have a decade of action. And if we achieve that, the possibility of conflicts will vanish. One of the goals is about inequality. Today's inequality, people say that in this world, the half busload of the people, 26 of them, they own 90% of the wealth. Now, this inequality is a part of the Sustainable Development Goals. How we achieve it? Not only related to the government, but it can be achieved by making sure that our demands on those who are making profits, those demands are reduced so that they are not able to carry out their activities in a way that disturbs the balance. And one of the activities are related to what is called as a working with the nature and not necessarily working against the nature. The working with the nature is trying to copy nature, how it works. See, the human beings may be few million years old, but the nature is billion years old. And that nature has survived. And people do say that man may not survive, but nature will exist. People will go, but the planet will exist. And we have to learn from the nature how they are able to prosper in spite of adversity. And once we do that, we probably will be able to achieve the peace. That's why probably our forefathers, our sage, our rishis, they went into nature and established the institutes called as ashrams, because we have to be close with the nature. Today, people have forgotten even what nature is, because they are so away, so busy, and so much addicted to the modern life, which is so far away from the world. So let us be humble. Let us realize that we are one of the 8 million species, and what we want to achieve is not only the human peace, but the whole planet's peace. There are a number of examples and case studies have been done how that can be achieved. There are communities who are working towards that to exemplify it. It's not going to be easy, knowing that people are focusing on a modern world and the inventions. But today we are so much humbled that we have missiles, we have atomic weapons, and we can go to the Mars, and we can have our electrical vehicles, all those things, but we cannot defeat a microorganism called as a coronavirus, which doesn't go with atomic weapons. It doesn't deal with it. It doesn't recognize it. And we are even unable to understand this microorganism. We say that we understand the other planets and the universe, but we are unable to understand this microorganism. We have been humbled. And then it comes again and again in the mind that yes, only by understanding the nature, respecting it, and taking the responsibility to make sure that their existence remains in a sustainable way is the only way to get the peace. I will be happy to answer any questions on this. And I think Pradeep has already explained to you the kind of projects that we are working in the Thayer Policy Center. And these are the projects which tell the young minds how to respect the nature and how to be humble with the nature. Thank you, Pradeep.
God. Rajendra, thank you very much. It was a very, very passionate plea for protecting nature. And protecting nature is concomitant with bringing peace to the world. I never realized that there is something called a World War III, invisible World War that is going on. In fact, I was very proud all the while that UN and what Rotary is doing and what I am doing, what you are doing, everybody is preventing World War III. But the World War III is already there at our doorstep, but in a different form. This is very interestingly, you talked about 8 million species. You know what it reminded me of? 84 lakh yoni.
Exactly.
It's amazing that our sages, at a time when there was no count of species, no even understanding of the great kingdoms under the sea, they knew really almost precisely how many species are there. 84 lakh
Very
yoni.
true. Very true.
And there is one statement of yours which I remember from another seminar where you said that 1 out of 8 species is becoming extinct because of man's indiscretion with nature, which is shocking. And that 1 out of 8 could also be us, the Homo sapiens.
That's right.
Okay, I now thank you for that, but I now want to pass on any questions. Can you please raise your hand? Only Nitish, you will have to help me because I'm not able to see any flag over here of hands being raised. So if anybody can please or straight away unmute yourself and just say hello, that might be nice. Any questions, please? And your questions can be for Rajendra ji as also for Dr. Victor Paul. Dr. Paul, I hope you are there.
Yes, I am there. I am there.
So any questions? We will take a few questions and then I'll do the wrap up. Okay, while people are still thinking of their question, yeah, there's somebody who's asked, SM Nanal. Can Nanal please unmute yourself and ask your question?
This is a question for Rajendra sir. Sir, will you please differentiate between calmness of mind and harmony? That is a very interesting thing for me. You just referred this about when you are discussing about the peace. So my question is to differentiate between calmness of mind and harmony.
Well, I think very interesting question. Thank you, Mr. Nanal. I think calmness of mind is very selfish concept. I'm telling my personal opinion. Because we are talking about our own calmness. And in order to achieve that human calm, we may do certain things which will not help achieving the calmness of the nature. And thus a harmony is something goes beyond the calmness of mind. It's a harmony with the ecosystem in which we live. So we have to have a harmony not only within our family, inside the house, not only have a harmonious relationship with our friends outside the house, but we should have a harmony with the nature and nature's elements. And when the human beings will live with the harmony with the nature, they will achieve the calmness of the mind. And again, I want to say that it's not difficult because our forefathers have already done it. They were in the nature. And probably that's why Sri Ram was asked to go to Vanvas. Probably he thought it is a boon. He thought it is a good opportunity to be in harmony with the nature. That's what I look at Ramayana. Mr. Nanal, did you get it?
I think we'll have to leave it there because there are some other people. Nanal is a good friend of mine. We'll call him for a discussion later. Can I request Reverend Varghese to please ask your question? Unmute yourself. Reverend Varghese.
Yes. My question to Rajendra Shinde is that it is very good presentation regarding sustainable development. But my question is that whenever the forestation program, whatever we done, the corporates will take advantage of the things. So what way the corporate attack will be shunned by United Nations organizations or Terry Foundation like that. That I'm saying, whoever working hard towards the conservation of nature, forestation like that, it will be again an advantage for the profit motive people, corporates. How we can tackle that? Thank you.
Mr. Varghese, a nice question. And it was always nice to talk to you before a seminar. I think it is a difficult issue which you're talking about. See, the corporates actually are working for their profits. But frankly speaking, look at the much larger picture. They are working to satisfy the demands of the society. So let's say they are doing something by harming the nature or by deforestation, then I think the society should work against it to make sure that they don't carry out that activity with the deforestation if that activity is really useful to us. That's number one. Now that brings the activism in a picture. But without bringing the activism, United Nations, I mentioned that on 31st January, exactly on the day when we are sitting, in 2000, about 20 years back, United Nations came out with what is called as a Global Compact. That Global Compact has the principle of getting the business and the corporations to follow 10 principles related to sustainable development. To have a responsible behavior, human rights, respecting the human rights, respecting the climate change issues, etc., etc. Now, there are more than 10,000 corporations which are part of it, including Tata's. including Reliance. And I think one of the things that probably Rotary can do is, if you see such kind of grabbing opportunities by the corporates, we should be writing to the United Nations Global Compact saying that these people have pledged for being the party to it, but they are not following it. So that is a non-activist approach. One is going with the placard and asking them to stop it. Another is trying to find out whether they are probably a global compact. And look, the small and medium scale industries don't do such kind of things. It is only the large corporations do it. And most of the large corporations are part of the global compact. And I think one of the things that we are doing through the THER Policy Center is those big companies which are not part of it to sign global compact pledge. And the World Economic Forum also is doing the same thing of promoting the global compact. I know you probably have not got the full answer to satisfy your questions, but I think there are some tools available for us which we can explore.
Rajendra, I think we'll leave that question there, and we can invite this gentleman again to have a more detailed discussion.
Right.
Thakurji, are you able to unmute yourself? Or can the host please help him to unmute? He has a question. Vibhakar Ramtirthakar.
Hello.
Please.
Rajendra ji,
Yes, sir.
I feel our style of living and greed of consumption is the reason for the demolition of the various species. What do you think, sir?
It is absolutely true. It is absolutely true. Now look at any document which talks about water conservation. Why we should have water conservation? It says because the human beings need water for drinking, for bath, for agriculture, and for. But then we forget that the water is also needed by the trees which are there for years together on the banks of the river, or they are there in the mountains. We never talk about the water for them because nature is never greedy. It's the human beings which call themselves as the most brainy people, they are the greedy. And I totally agree with you.
Thank you, Rajendra. Okay, we have just time for one more question. Vinod Suryavanshi, can you unmute yourself, Vinod?
Hello, good evening, sir. Rajendra sir and all the speakers. My question is to Rajendra sir. Sir, from the morning onwards, I'm just going through this whole session regarding on the topic peace. A very good statement. It was said by one of the students that if you don't stop war, the war will end us. So I want to just ask, at presently all the chaos regarding to the peace, everything is going on. How it can be controlled? What action plan it can be implemented in order to stop, to bring to a level of peace and harmony?
Well, Pradeep, you should ask me to talk for another 20 minutes on that question.
Unfortunately, we cannot.
No. Okay, so just a short answer. Let me give you an example. Many people think that Mr. Shende is talking about all the dreamy things and peace is not possible with sustainable development. Please study, Vinodji, how Costa Rica, a country in Central America, is working today. That country does not have a budget for the defense because there is no Costa Rican army. There is no Costa Rican Air Force. There is no Costa Rican Navy, even if it is surrounded by the sea. That is because Costa Rican leaders have understood that they live within nature. And that nature is something going to give them a peace, whatever you call it, peace of mind or harmony and all those things. But such society exists, and we only need to study it, how it is working. We probably in India need to create such kind of communities who live in a harmony with the nature. I mean, whole India, maybe about 1,000 years back or 2,000 years back, was such society. And then we lost our harmony because somebody from outside came and probably looted our culture and looted our calm. I don't want to talk about looting the gold and silver and all that. I'm saying they looted our nature. And that could be the quick answer to that, because I know Pradeep is getting restless
No.
on timing part of it. I mean, he's losing the peace.
No. I'm good. Rajendra, you have been a fantastic speaker and a nice answers you have given. There'll be a formal vote of thanks later, but I just want to summarize that the points which I got from you was that if we do aggression on nature, then peace gets disturbed. That was a very wonderful point you made. Then we have been humbled. Yes, we have been humbled by nature. So if we don't look after nature, nature is going to teach us a lesson, which is what it is doing right now. So thank you, Rajendra. Please stay on because I'm making my chairman's address now.
Okay.
Next 10 minutes.
Okay.
Also, Victor ji, please stay on for some more time. Thank you very much.